Sometimes it's really hard to know exactly how a title should be translated into something that could be understandable in English. Honoo no Doukyuuji is one of those times. Honoo is easy enough. It's flaming, burning, especially any kind of metaphorical burn. But Doukyuuji, well, the dokyu in it is actually the Japanese term for rugby, and the ji in this case refers to children. It's clearly a reference to the sport they're playing, but they don't play rugby in the original comic that this is based on. Since it's the sport they play, and they play dodgeball, I went with that, even though dodgeball is just dodgeball in Japanese. The comic that the game is based on is about Danpei, an elementary school boy who loves dodgeball. He wants to be the greatest dodgeball player ever, and the comic, and later cartoon, follow his struggles to achieve that. Honoo no Doukyuuji has a dubious distinction as a Famicom game. This is the launch of the final Famicom game series. In other words, this is the last time that an original game on the Famicom will receive a sequel on the Famicom. When you play Honoo Doukyuuji, you first have to choose between Battle Mode or Scenario Mode. Battle Mode just lets you pick out any of the teams in the game and pit them against each other, while Scenario Mode has you play out a storyline. Not that there's much to the storyline, you just climb the ranks until you take on the team of villainous dodgeball-playing ninjas. Before every match, you can set who will be your starters and who will be playing on the outskirts of the field, and as the storyline progresses, you'll also pick up some new members that can help you out. Every member is rated on stamina, attack power, and defense power. And your starting team is not that great. You can hit B to pull a person off the team, and hit A to put them into a position. There's 4 infielders who will be playing initially, and 3 outsiders who surround the field and can attack, but don't go in until someone's been knocked out. Hit start once you have the team ready, and then it's time to play dodgeball through a card game. Now I actually had some high hopes here. I was thinking, oh, there might be some strategy involved. Maybe I'll have to come up with some clever moves. Nope, it's almost entirely random. You have a hand of 7 cards, and you choose to play 3 at a time. The cards will always be played in the order that you selected them. On the card selection screen, you can also see who has possession of the ball at that moment, as well as the current stats for anyone on the field. There are 4 kinds of cards, and by far the most common are the attack cards. These have 3 numbers on them, and if you have possession of the ball and play an attack card, then only the row marked hit is used. You select who you're going to target on the other team, and then you see what defensive card they played. On defense, the attack card uses the same row as the other player's hit, and you add the hit to the attacker's attack value, and compare that to the same row on the defender's card plus their defense value, and if the attack is higher than that defense, then the targeted player loses an amount of stamina dependent on how great the difference is. The ball then goes to someone else, typically one of your other players. If the defender's value is greater, then they catch the ball. The super cards act as regular attack cards, just with higher values. However, certain characters have super moves associated with them, and if they use the super move, then they get an extra strong attack that is very likely to take out whoever it connects with. The line cross cards are your ultimate defense. Whoever has the ball when you play one of those has committed a foul. Whatever they were doing is cancelled, and the ball goes to the other team. Of course, if you happen to have possession of the ball when that happens, then you've just handed the ball to the opponent. Finally, the pass cards will let you send the ball to any other player on your team, assuming you control the ball at that time. If 2 pass cards are played, then the pass was intercepted. And if you play a pass card on defense, then it's effectively the same thing as playing a 0. The big problem with this as a card game is that you really can only plan for your first attack. You don't know who's going to have possession of the ball after you play that first card. So what do you do beyond that? You just have to make some wild guesses. And you can't see your opponent's stats beyond their stamina when it's in the actual game action. Being able to see your attack and your opponent's defense would let you make some reasonable strategic decisions. But here you just have to memorize everyone if you want to do that. And when it comes to picking targets, there's really nothing more you can do than just choosing somebody and picking on them. Which I guess is kind of true to Dodgeball, but it doesn't make for a very good game. When a player is knocked out, they at least go to the outside of the field, so it's not like you're losing your strongest attacker if that happens. It's just now they're standing someplace else. There are a handful of useful strategies, like saving the line cross cards until the start of a turn where your opponent could be using a super move on you, and you can burn through your cards with a weak attack when you know that you don't have possession of the ball. But a lot of the time, it's just going to be luck and there's not a whole lot you can do. In my first game, the opposing team kept drawing super attacks. There's not a whole lot I could do against that. There's a time limit on the game, which means that there's a maximum number of turns, and whoever's had more players knocked out over the course of that time loses. Then you get a password, which will be useful if you've won, and can go on to the next match. Honoo no Doukyuuji doesn't seem to be well remembered in Japan, and I don't just mean the game. It seems like it was kind of popular for a few years, at just the perfect moment when there would be a ton of games made based on it. But 30 years on, nobody even remembers the comic or cartoon. My own take on Honoo no Doukyuuji is that it's just not a lot of fun. The game's just too random, and there's not enough strategy for you to be able to do a whole lot here. And the few strategies you do have are kind of obvious. The Famicom sequel's another card game, and I'd like to see some improvement when I get there, but I don't have a lot of hope for it.